does what Nintendo don't. Does what Nintendo don't.
What's up, guys? Bong. Boom. I got a plan for today. For once, I got a plan. Step one. We're gonna be going over an explainer video that I've been working on. Right now, the AI does the voice, but I'm gonna try to dub the voice myself later when I figure out a better version. So the schedule is gonna go like this. We got an explainer video, which goes over the way that I use language, the way that I view the world, and what I'm trying to teach people with my work. Then we're gonna dive into the Velocity Hostage article. Then we're gonna dive into part 3 of the Ghosted Machine. Alright? There's gonna be some videos to watch. I know they can be better. Give me some criticism because they're not final yet. I wanna do my own voice over it. Alright? We're gonna transition. We're gonna shut up this awesome music and we will transition. Boom, boom, yeah. Boom, boom, yeah.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're cracking open a set of texts that paint a pretty wild picture of how power and money really operate. Now, our job here isn't to tell you if this view is right or wrong. Our goal is just to lay it all out, to explain the logic from the inside out using their own words as our guide. So, right at the heart of this whole thing is one big, challenging idea. The argument is basically this. All the political fights we see every day, left versus right, they're just a show, a distraction from a completely different, and they would argue, much more important struggle. All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll get the language down in a section we're calling Decoding the System. Then we'll trace the history of this idea they call the immortal machine. After that, we'll jump to a huge modern event they frame as the Great Erasure. And finally, we'll get into the practical stuff, how they see conflict in a new kind of war, and this really interesting framework they call hardware versus software. Okay, let's dive in. To even begin to get our heads around this worldview, we first have to learn its vocabulary. The source basically hands us a Rosetta Stone to decipher what it calls, simply, the machine. So what is the machine? Well, this is the absolute core of the entire theory. It's described as this closed-loop system, an engine built for one thing and one thing only, financial extraction. The idea is that it was engineered by a tiny elite for that same elite, and it operates completely outside of any public control. It's not just a system, it's a self-perpetuating machine. Okay, so if you're going to build a machine to last forever, you've got a problem. According to this viewpoint, you've got a biological bug. The people running it are, well, they're people. They're mortal. They have liabilities. They can be held accountable, thrown in jail. So the narrative here is that the entire 19th century was about one big project, getting rid of the fallible human operator and building an immortal one. And this timeline lays out what the source sees as 4 critical upgrades. Think of them as software patches. First, in 1832, you have the oxygen gambit, where a private banker allegedly tanks the economy just to get political leverage. Fast forward to 1862, the blood arbitrage, a pretty stark name, right? Where financiers in the Civil War get paid their interest in gold, while soldiers are paid in paper money that's losing its value by the day. Then, and this is a big one, the clerical coup of 1886. This is where a simple court reporter's note supposedly grants corporations the same constitutional rights as a person. And the final piece of the puzzle, the Apex Lock in 1913, the creation of the Federal Reserve, which this source calls a private banking cartel designed to control the money supply itself. You see the pattern? Each step moves power away from actual accountable people and into these abstract, untouchable structures. And that brings us to this monster of an idea, the corporate person. The source doesn't pull any punches here, calling it an immortal sociopath cooked up in a legal lab. Think about it. A legal fiction that has all the rights of a citizen, but none of the real-world liabilities. You can't imprison a corporation's body. You can't appeal to its conscience. It's the perfect operator for the machine. Pure logic, zero empathy, and absolutely no accountability. All right, let's fast forward. We're jumping to the modern era. The source material looks at September 11th, 2001 through a really unique lens. It argues that 9/11 wasn't the start of a new story, but actually the explosive end to a financial mystery that had just been revealed the day before. It all starts here. On September 10th, 2001, the day before the attacks, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld goes public and admits something pretty astounding. The Pentagon can't track $2.3 trillion in transactions. That's trillion with a T. For this particular worldview, this isn't just a footnote to history, it's the opening scene. And let's just pause on that number, $2.3 trillion. From the perspective we're examining, this wasn't some clerical error or a case of sloppy bookkeeping. No, the argument is that this was hard evidence of a shadow budget, a parallel financial system operating completely in the dark with no oversight whatsoever. So you have this massive, multi-trillion-dollar problem that's just been made public. And the source claims the problem wasn't just the missing money. It was that the trail was still hot. The audit was happening. But then the very next day, something happens that it calls a coincidence so precise, it just happens to solve this exact problem by, well, destroying the evidence. And this slide really gets to the heart of the claim. It points to what it calls the twin erasures. On one side, you have the audit. The specific section of the Pentagon that was hit, Wedge 1, was the one that housed the Army's budget office. It's where the accountants and civilian auditors tasked with finding that missing $2.3 trillion were working. On the other side, you have the evidence. World Trade Center 7, a building that wasn't hit by a plane but collapsed later that day, housed the archives for the SEC, the IRS, and the Secret Service. We're talking about the files for major Wall Street fraud investigations. So the claim is stark. The internal audit and the external enforcement files were both physically eliminated within hours of each other. So, if you take that interpretation of history as a starting point, the source then argues that we're all looking at the world completely wrong, that the conflicts we're told to care about are a distraction from the real war. And it lays it out with these two models. On the left, you have horizontal war, left versus right. The text calls this a puppet coliseum, a big, loud, distracting show designed to keep all of us down here fighting each other over cultural issues. But on the right, it presents what it calls the real conflict, vertical war, top versus bottom. It even gives them names. The rust, a parasitic elite system, versus the gears, the productive majority that actually makes everything run. The whole argument is that you can't even begin to see what's happening until you switch your perspective from horizontal to vertical. Okay, so for our final section, the texts give us a tool. A practical mental model, they say, you can use to navigate a world that's just flooded with competing stories. It's the difference between what they call hardware and software. And the idea is actually pretty simple. Hardware is verifiable physical reality. It's the road you're driving on. Things like bank ledgers, the actual text of a bill, your grocery receipt, even biological pain. It's stuff you can touch and verify for yourself. Software, on the other hand, is the story, the narrative. It's the windshield you're looking through. Things like headlines, what experts are saying, political speeches. And the core rule the source proposes is this: when the software, the story, directly contradicts the hardware of your own lived reality, you should just downgrade that software to noise. And to make it even more concrete, the source provides this kind of Rosetta Stone, a translation guide. It takes terms we hear all the time and reframes them to, in its view, expose the underlying hardware. So the gig economy becomes benefit-free labor. Self-care becomes a systemic liability, basically pushing the cost of a broken system onto the individual. Expert consensus is just another word for software, and credit becomes debt bondage. It's all about changing the words to, supposedly, see the world more clearly. And that really brings us to the final provocative question that this entire framework leaves you with. It's a direct challenge. In a world divided into hardware and software, which one are you looking at? It's asking you to critically look at every piece of information you get, to compare the story they're telling you with the receipt in your hand, and ultimately to decide for yourself what's real.
So there. Oh, shut up. So there we have it. We go back to 1773, all the way to now. The whole detailed article series isn't out yet, but it's going to be a whole schematic. This isn't a new phenomenon, you know. This is a closed loop extraction engine, and it's been running for probably before America. But after the American Revolution, we know Alexander Hamilton and the financial elite engineered a system to buy up the hyperinflated debt of the starving veterans for pennies on the dollar, funding a massive wealth transfer from the working class to Wall Street. And when the human operators of this system realized they could be held liable or jailed by an angry public, they evolved the machine by inventing the corporate person in the 19th century. An immortal, untouchable legal fiction. And Nicholas Biddle, deliberately crashing the economy in 1832 to Wall Street, extracting massive margins from the bloodshed of the Civil War in World War I, the elite have consistently used crises to socialize their risks and privatize their profits. But the system got its ultimate upgrade in 2001. On September 10th, the Pentagon announced it couldn't track 2.3 trillion in transactions. The very next day, the exact offices investigating those missing funds in the Pentagon's Wedge 1, along with the SEC and IRS evidence archives in World Trade Center 7, it was all destroyed. This was not just an interruption of an investigation. It was a system switch into a new operating system. And the elite used the emergency to install a permanent shadow government where financial crimes are legalized. And this is what I need to say. It's not an entity, it's a machine. It's self-functioning, perpetuating. It's not like a shadowy group of people when I say shadow government. But let's just say the elites used this emergency to pre-install this machine. Oversight is privatized right now. There's unaccountable contractors, and the system literally deleted its own memory. It still does, using what we call a glitch defense, episode 4 of the Shadow Arc. Whenever accountability gets too close. So it's like the Epstein files. Just wait till they say they lost all the information. All those pages are gone all of a sudden. I'm surprised they haven't. So where does that leave us today, huh? We are being transitioned from a citizen who owns things to a user who merely rents permission. Citizen who owns things to a user who merely rents permissions. Through algorithmic price fixing like RealPage in the housing market, skyrocketing credit card debt, and the shift toward the subscription economy, we are entering feudalism 2.0. The elite know this system of endless extraction is destroying the host, and they don't care because they are busy funding their own exit strategies. They're building bunkers, accumulating land, and planning for a post-human, post-public world under their TESCREAL ideology. Now, that's a rabbit hole, but it's real. However, the system has a fatal flaw. It cannot survive vertical clarity. When people realize they are being crushed by the same algorithmic landlord or the same debt machine, the horizontal illusion breaks. It's a moment referred to as the vertical glitch. Now, there's exceptions. There's people out there who want to be stuck in their identities, and they want to fight for their identities over their economy, over their right to live. But I'm here to argue that all social issues are exacerbated by economic issues. And while those hateful people on both sides will still be there, we can find more unity in focusing on this economic crisis. So that's an introduction to the way that I look at the world. It actually was a brief summary of a lot of my work, what I just presented to you right now. A lot of people were confused by the way I was phrasing the most recent article talking about the warehouse fire in Ontario. So I wanted to go into how I view things and how I use language. I have another video prepared. We're going to move into the velocity hostage, the Ontario warehouse fire article. I have prepared some more explanation in video presentation, unless anyone has any questions. You guys are good at listening. So far, so good. Okay. We're going to go back into Ontario and look at the man who threw his life away pretty much because he couldn't think of any other way to live.
On April 7, 2026, a 29-year-old forklift driver walked through the aisles of a Kimberly-Clark distribution center in Southern California and lit a match. Within hours, the 1.2 million square foot facility was consumed by a 6-alarm fire. The blaze destroyed an estimated $156 million in commercial inventory, turning pallets of Huggies diapers and Cottonelle toilet paper into ash. The corporate public relations response was immediate and highly calculated. Kimberly-Clark deployed a legal structure known as the subcontractor shield. Because the worker was technically employed by a third-party staffing agency, the mega-corporation could legally distance itself from the labor conditions on the floor. Press releases flooded the media, framing the event as a localized criminal anomaly and labeling the arsonist a randomly disgruntled employee. But the worker recorded a video during the precise moment of ignition. Over the sound of the incipient flames, he narrated his exact motive. "All you had to do was pay us enough to live. There goes your inventory." The arson was a predictable thermodynamic response to an economic structure engineered to mathematically starve its labor. When a system strictly calculates the maximum possible extraction of physical effort against the lowest possible survival wage, the resulting friction eventually sparks. To test the worker's claim, we have to strip away the corporate phrasing about competitive wages and audit the actual math. A standard forklift operator in this geographic sector earns roughly $18 an hour. For a full-time worker, after you deduct federal income tax, state tax, Medicare, and Social Security, the absolute maximum net take-home pay is exactly $2,582 a month. This chart maps that $2,582 against the baseline biological survival floor in Ontario, California. First, we deduct shelter. The average rent for a basic one-bedroom apartment extracts $2,029. We then subtract the mandatory regional utilities, electricity, water, gas, and the digital connectivity required to function in modern society, which pull another $235 from the ledger. The worker is left with $318 to fund the rest of their existence for a 30-day cycle. From that remainder, they must purchase enough caloric fuel, basic food, to perform heavy manual labor, and they must maintain a personal vehicle with gas and insurance to commute to the sprawling inland warehouses. When you subtract those final absolute minimums, the equation collapses. The worker is left with a mandatory, unavoidable deficit of $796 every single month. You cannot survive a recurring negative $800 balance. The human biology breaks down to close the gap. The worker drops their health insurance, leaving themselves entirely exposed to medical bankruptcy. They skip meals. They sleep in their vehicles to reclaim the rent capital, or they bridge the deficit by stacking credit card debt at 25% interest rates, effectively indenturing their future labor just for the privilege of waking up and working. The monopoly algorithm operating that warehouse successfully managed $156 million in commercial inventory, while simultaneously enforcing a state of economic terror on the biological machines moving it. The worker realized their physical survival was a mathematical impossibility, and the fire became the physical exhaust of that realization. But from a purely tactical perspective, the arson was a complete strategic failure. Setting the facility on fire simply allowed the corporation to access its safety nets. Destruction is a blunt instrument that triggers robust business interruption insurance payouts, initiates criminal indictments, and hands the extractive elite the perfect legal sanitized narrative to dismiss the worker entirely. Curious, leaning in, the worker correctly identified the precise choke point of the system, the physical inventory, but he brought the wrong weapon to the terminal. The modern supply chain operates on a just-in-time logistics model. To maximize quarterly shareholder returns, corporations have systematically eradicated physical buffer stock. They no longer hoard goods in back rooms for months. They rely entirely on absolute frictionless speed to move products directly from the manufacturer to the consumer. Modern logistics hubs function as kinetic engines. Their immense financial value relies entirely on the uninterrupted motion of the goods flowing through them every single second. Destroying that inventory triggers legal safety nets and bails the company out. But if you stop the velocity of that inventory, you shatter the mathematical foundation of the entire trillion-dollar network. To see how to actually defeat a highly optimized supply node, we have to look backward. We need to look at the brutal winter of 1937, during the massive General Motors strikes in Flint, Michigan. Prior to this event, traditional labor strikes involved picketing on the street outside. This allowed corporate management and local police to easily deploy strikebreakers, violently disperse the crowds, and turn the assembly line back on. The Flint workers changed the geometry of the fight. They stopped standing outside in the cold, and instead they occupied the plant itself. This maneuver, the sit-down strike, instantly neutralized the police and corporate security. Management could not bomb the facility with tear gas or send in violent strikebreakers because the occupying workers now held the machinery hostage. Any aggressive incursion would inherently result in the destruction of General Motors' own capital equipment. The workers secured the tactical high ground simply by sitting down. The financial hemorrhage was staggering. By halting the nationwide production web from the inside, the 44-day strike cost General Motors the modern inflation-adjusted equivalent of $930 million every single day. The Flint strike proved that true leverage does not require a single match. It simply requires stopping the machine and physically refusing to let anyone else turn it back on. Let's run an alternate timeline for the Ontario, California warehouse. In this simulation, the 29-year-old worker facing a $796 monthly deficit puts the match back in his pocket. He remembers the Flint blueprint. At 12:30 a.m., he coordinates a synchronized maneuver. 20 workers drive their 9,000-pound forklifts directly into the primary inbound and outbound loading base. They park them dead center, remove the ignition keys, step off the machinery, and walk to the center of the warehouse to sit down. The facility is instantly paralyzed. Local management cannot call a standard tow truck to navigate tight warehouse aisles and drag a locked, dead 9,000-pound machinery away from a bay door. The police arrive, but there is no active fire and no violence. It will take them hours to safely and manually remove 20 peaceful individuals from the center of a 1.2 million square foot footprint, and even when they do, the forklifts remain locked in place. Without the distraction of felony arson or a raging inferno, the corporate public relations shield instantly fractures. The media cannot report on a crazy pyromaniac. They are forced to ask why 20 logistics workers orchestrated a multi-million-dollar blockade, finally broadcasting the math of the $796 deficit to the public. By refusing to break a single window, the workers successfully translate the 1930s industrial strike into a weapon precision-engineered to crush a modern logistics node. Every minute those bay doors remain blocked, the external damage compounds. The $156 million in inventory becomes a static liability. Inbound semi-trucks carrying new freight have nowhere to dock. They pile up in the yard, spilling out onto the highway, and causing severe secondary gridlock across the local municipal infrastructure. Within 24 hours, the digital algorithms trigger the bullwhip effect. Because physical buffer stock has been entirely eliminated from the economy, the system detects the sudden regional void and panics. It sends distorted, amplified demand signals back up the chain to manufacturers, creating massive inventory imbalances and stockouts of consumer goods across the region. By day 3, the structural architecture begins to fail. Desperate vendors who rely on the warehouse miss their rigid delivery windows, breaching their service level agreements and triggering millions of dollars in unrecoverable contractual penalties. And Kimberly-Clark is left with a terminal legal vulnerability. You cannot file a property damage insurance claim for a traffic jam. There is no policy payout for a massive pile of stationary, undamaged inventory. Corporate wealth relies entirely on the flawless, subservient movement of the working class. Asymmetrical power resides in the tactical discipline to hold the velocity of capital hostage.
You look at your pay stub, then your rent.
Yo, okay, so I'm sorry, my brother walked in at the end of that video. I'm a little distracted now. Boom. Where's the PowerPoint I was gonna do? You think she fell down the stairs?
Well, I heard like so.
Duh. Oh, that's a. I have to pay attention then. Okay.
Keep praying for now.
Thanks, Lucas. All right. That's not the right one. Sorry for that. I have ADHD. It's hard for me to do two things at once. I was talking to my brother. Where is the... This is why I need to start editing my videos after. Might want to pull up the right one. There we go. So yeah, Seventh Sign Soul. Yeah, that's probably why they do target it. There's legitimate reasons to criticize some, especially a lot of the big unions, but I don't know why political parties want to focus so hard on unions other than the fact that occasionally they can do crazy cool things. Yeah. But I have a little bit more to talk about here as I get back into it. So basically the mainstream media wants you to believe that what happened 3 days ago in Ontario, California was just like a random act of violence. They want you to think it's a crime story about a crazed arsonist. If you've got clips of mainstream news saying otherwise, mentioning the cost of living and how this is an inevitable thermodynamic reaction, you tell me, because I don't see any. This is an autopsy of an economic system that is bleeding to death. We are opening the classified telemetry on the Ontario flashpoint. And I'm going to show you exactly how to break the monopoly algorithm. So, April 7th, 2026, a 1.2 million square foot Kimberly-Clark distribution center burns to the ground. A total structural loss. $156 million of inventory turned to ash. The catalyst? A 29-year-old biological machine. A warehouse worker named Shamel Abdul Karim, sorry if I butcher that, employed by a third-party proxy called NFI Industries. Before he lit the match, he recorded a video. He said, "All you had to do was pay us enough to live. There goes your inventory." The system calls that arson, but I'm going to call it predictable thermodynamic response to a structural impossibility. Look at how the rust defends itself. The second the flames went up, the media deployed the Cassandra algorithm. They called him deranged. They called him disgruntled. Why? Because if he's just crazy, they don't have to look at the math. They minimize his existential poverty into a petty bad mood. Hell yeah, the hippies were right. They value the $200 million of toilet paper over the biological survival of the human being moving it. What's up, baby? My cat's wandering. Let's look at the actual math. Zero sentiment, just the ledger. A full-time logistics worker makes about $18 an hour. After taxes, his net monthly take-home is $2,582. Now, subtract the $2,029 for a median one-bedroom apartment in Ontario. Subtract $426 for a car and insurance to get to work. $406 for food, bare caloric intake, as my the infographic says. Utilities, power, internet, all that stuff, insurance, 500 more. The math don't add up. The system literally refuses to pay the cost of the labor it demands. Now, this isn't inflation. That's just layer one economic terror. So this is the subcontractor shield. So how does Kimberly-Clark get away with it? They use the subcontractor shield. Kimberly-Clark lives in a glass castle. They own the profitable inventory, but they lease the warehouse and hire a 3PL proxy. This one's NFI Industries to run the meat grinder. Good kitty. When the warehouse burns down, Kimberly-Clark's PR team steps up and says, "He wasn't our employee." They outsourced the poverty. They outsourced the liability. And they absorbed the frictionless capital. Oh, poor kitty. She's old. Her legs are giving out, but she doesn't want to stop moving. So, this is the disparity matrix, all right? The disparity is staggering. At Kimberly-Clark, they post $16.4 billion in sales. Their CEO makes $15 million a year. But because they hide behind NFI Industries, a company with multi-million-dollar history of wage theft and OSHA violations, the true CEO to worker pay ratio is hidden. Oh, poor kitty. Now, to be honest with you, 305 to 1 is already huge, but the real number is just way bigger. Oh, kitty. Didn't you use the bathroom or something? I feel like you'd be meowing. Sorry, guys. Gotta be the cat dad. But this is the flaw of the fire. Besides the obvious danger of it all and how he threw away his life, like, that obviously is the no-brainer part. But even if you want to say everything you have to live for is to inflict damage, he still did not do it the most effectively, in my opinion. Like, because we live in a society that has not fully accepted that type of violence is necessary, and I hope we don't need it. I hope a lot of us think that. And there are other ways to do it, and he was in a strategic choke point at the end of the day. And with his position, he could have organized that simulation that I said before, in the video before, with the forklifts and whatnot. So it was a massive failed mechanic, arson. When you use fire, you trigger a police response, you trigger an insurance payout that protects the corporate ledger. Now, if you waste the time, it's a lot harder for them to file that, and it actually hurts them. Like, you're just hurting the insurance company at that point, which I guess is fine, but damn, I want to start looking into how all these insurance companies operate. I bet that's a rabbit hole in itself too. But last slide. Which one's this one? Retrieving the blueprint. Oh yeah. This is about the Flint indictment. I have a whole article about the Flint indictment you guys can read after. I'll try to post it. But to actually hurt the machine, don't look at arsonists. You look at the Flint sit-down strike. The auto workers didn't burn the plant down. They didn't walk outside to freeze on a picket line either. They sat down inside. They took the physical machinery hostage, because you can't bomb a plant without destroying your own assets. You know, going guns blazing the police officers while they could just threaten to break the machine. Like, General Motors bled $43 million a day until they surrendered. Apply that to 2026. The modern mega node doesn't store inventory anymore. It routes it. Well, like, I guess this was an exception, which was probably why he wanted to burn it, because he realized that was a lot of money, but 156 million. But you could hurt him even more with the velocity, and it's less dangerous, and it's arguably more legal. A facility like Ontario processes 199 orders every single second. So just-in-time logistics views static storage as financial waste. Value is measured strictly in velocity, which means time is the ultimate asymmetric weapon. Here's the alternate timeline. It's the constructed miracle. Excuse me. The worker puts the match away. He becomes a node in a synchronized phalanx, a group of close, connected people. At 12:30 a.m., 20 forklift drivers could drive their 9,000-pound machines dead center into the loading bays, turn off the ignitions, pocket the keys, and sit down. Or better yet, hide the keys somewhere they'll never freaking find them. And all the spares too, you know, and gotta think ahead of these things. Like, sure, they can make new keys. How long is that gonna take? Or how are they going to fit a tow with all these pallets around? They really can't. No. So even if they somehow take the 20 peaceful sit-down people out, takes hours, causes a big scene, how are they still can't move the forklifts? Who is Lee Camp? Share with everybody. But yeah, like, I used to work at a gas station, and now that I don't have to work there anymore, I'm trying to think of ways to practically organize. I'm not an organized person, but I do think about tactics. So I come up with the blueprints. Y'all organize. But good kitty. Look at this. Arson gets written off by insurance. A logistical freeze cannot be claimed. It is a pure liability sink. Okay, you want to go down? Go down. But in this is a logistical freeze. It cannot be claimed by insurance. It's a pure liability sink. Oh, I just said that. I have some notes written down. Anyway, within the first 24 hours, you get 100% loss. Inbound trucks collide in the yard. And within 48 hours, the contagion breaches the facility. Upstream algorithms panic at the stockouts and trigger the bullwhip effect. I need to learn these things more. Okay, I think it's talking about what do I gotta call it? Lee Camp is independent news media. I look them up after. My kitty's distracting me. She's very old and acting sickly, so I get nervous. But yeah, this is the first time I got into the logistics of the on-time economy. I could definitely learn more about the details here. Because we have more power than we think we do just by doing nothing. This isn't theory. In 2023, a 10-day UPS strike threat was projected to cost the economy $7.1 billion. Downtime in these sectors cost $600 a second. To maximize their quarterly returns, the Rust eliminated all physical buffer stock from the global economy. By trying to make themselves invincible, they made themselves entirely dependent on the uninterrupted motion of the lowest paid workers on Earth. That is a fatal vulnerability. Think about it. Like, this is still sinking in for me, this part, because it's the logistics of it. And when I studied it, it was still brand new. And I don't think about logistics like this too often. But it makes a lot of sense. You sneezing, kitty? Anyway, we're no longer fighting for time, we're fighting for territory. Oh, this is this is so funny. The AI used to help me make these, it even put up the Rebels contract. Yeah. Help me continue to do this full time. Some people have to unsubscribe because they can't afford it anymore. It could help replace and then unsubscribe later too. It's just, that's the war chest, helps things keep going. Any questions about the velocity before we go into 1933 and I can get my cat back and settled while we watch one more video? Do you understand why it's called the velocity hostage? I feel like I got distracted at the end during that part. Because literally time is money more than ever nowadays. Yeah, so it's all about velocity now. So strategic choke points. You need to think about distribution centers for sure. Anybody who's working in a distribution center and isn't in a union should fix that. Maybe I should be talking more direct and more like a rebel leader. But because I'm not in a position to be in the warehouse myself, this is a call to action for others who know that they're having unfair wages. Like, don't do it if you're getting paid good. But we all know most people aren't. Shut up, kitty. Where are you? Where are you, cutie? I don't even see you. I just hear you. Oh, baby. Oh, you want to go on to bed? She's so cute. Her name's Mimsy. She's 20 years old. Mimsy, M-I-M-S-Y. There's definitely something wrong with the cat. I know there is. I've been taking her to the vet every other week now, just because I'm worried. But yeah, they tell me she's getting older. It's neurological. She has trouble walking on her back legs. She's meowing more quietly than normal. And sometimes she forgets to check in front of her, so she might fall down the stairs. It really stinks, because she's my first pet that I really call my own. So now that I put her on the bed, I'm like watching her to see if she's going to stay settled or if she's going to try to move. So, because sometimes she forgets to check in front of her, like I said. I don't know. It looks like she's okay this second. We will move into... Yeah, I love her name, Mimsy. Move into 1933.
You look at your pay stub, then your rent check. The math is impossible. This deficit reflects a mathematically closed loop called the hostage economy. In this vertical war, every missed budget is a casualty of an active hostage situation. The historical record shows exactly how the cage was built. This conflict has two sides. On top is the rust, the asset managers, corporate monopolies, and the parasitic elite. On the bottom are the gears, the laborers, the creators, and the productive majority. This schematic maps the true battlefield. To keep you from seeing the reality on the vertical axis, the rust manufactures a horizontal war on the x-axis. They feed you a never-ending partisan screaming match of left versus right. While you fight horizontally, they deploy their primary weapons vertically: perpetual debt, currency inflation, and zero redundancy work schedules. These mechanics enforce constant precarity. The architecture keeps the working class trapped in sheer survival mode, completely exhausted and unable to look up and identify their actual captors. When the working class actually threatens this system, the elite respond with force. In 1933, FDR's New Deal threatened Wall Street's capital, and the financial elite bought an override. The architects of this treason included the J.P. Morgan syndicates and corporate monopolies like DuPont. These were the exact same entities that had recently extracted 1,700% profit margins from the slaughter of World War I. Their objective was a military coup. They planned to hire a private mercenary army of 500,000 starving American veterans, overthrow the democratically elected government, and install a corporate dictator. This flowchart tracks the AstroTurf mechanics. The corporate money flown from Wall Street directly to an operative named Gerald McGuire, who was tasked with purchasing the loyalty of Marine General Smedley Butler to lead the army. The plot failed only because Butler refused the bribe. He stood before the McCormick-Dickstein Committee and delivered sworn testimony detailing the entire operation. The J.P. Morgan Syndicate viewed the military, the government, and the working class as disposable physical capital, assets purchased to protect a private balance sheet. Congressional investigators confirmed the plot was real, but no arrests followed. FDR faced a stalemate. The Morgan syndicates threatened to retaliate by crashing the sovereign bond markets, starving the New Deal to death. This timeline tracks their evolution. The elite abandoned the clumsy physical coup of 1933 and transitioned to institutional capture. Today, cartels like BlackRock and Vanguard simply buy the regulatory agencies and capture the money supply directly. When a crime is so structural that its prosecution collapses the state's economy, it becomes non-justiciable. This is the impunity doctrine. The architects are too integrated into the system to be punished by it. The logic that prioritized a 1,700% profit margin over a soldier's survival in 1914 has simply scaled. Today, that same cold math of extraction calculates your zero redundancy schedule to ensure the corporate margin never slips. It is time to deploy somatic skepticism. Downgrade the media narratives to noise, and trust the biological exhaustion in your bones. Stop fighting the horizontal puppet, and start cutting the vertical strings.
It's pretty powerful shit, right? When I learned about that in 1933, like I learned this stuff, I started studying the details of this article 2 days ago, but what I really learned, it was like 2 weeks ago now when I posted the preface, when I did the whole outline for the whole series. I was like, I think it was Anthony Firetongue on my page. He's one of the authors who posts. He told me about the 1933 attempted coup by, like, it was confirmed by people in Congress, like, but nobody was ever got in trouble for it because allegedly JP Morgan threatened to plummet the value of the New Deal. I know, it's real. Like, I can press Google, you can go on Google, write 1933 coup attempt America, and like it's there. It's just, it's not, why isn't there like an epic movie about it or something, right? Like you'd think that's like something something somebody would make a movie about. Maybe there is one, I'm just clueless. Yeah, like history can teach us a lot. And it's not like they hide it. The way history works now in the information age is just, it's perspective and perception. So that's why hardware versus software, you look for the receipts, not the report. But yeah, I could tell you more about it, but that's really the article that's coming out next. So I don't want to go into too much detail yet. I have a whole slide deck for that. What do you guys think about the videos? I kind of want to dub over them myself and do similar commentary, maybe change it a little bit, make it more me. But I think those videos have some good topics, some good. It gets the point across fast. Because it's hard doing a whole video all on my own. It's cool to use these slideshows. So yeah, the next article on the Ghost in the Machine is going to cover that stuff. The 1933 business coup. Along with some things that happened from 1914, I think. Yeah, you guys can read everything on verticalwar.com too. And that's where you can pre-order a book that I'm working on that's going to talk about basically the economic terror and the Great Distraction, which is what I call the horizontal war's strongest layers besides learned helplessness. It sounds like I talk in poetry, but I know exactly what I'm saying, and in this book I try to explain it more. It's about a third written, and I want to go over it. Before it's done, it's supposed to come out at the end of summer. I've changed the outline only once. See how the video's good. Hey, what's up? How you doing, Saint Badhone? I just did a presentation. I'll answer some more of your questions now if you want while I pull up just another set of article. Show the website? Sure. Bum, 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 bum. Let's see. I go boom. That's the Substack, but this is my website. Make it, it's too big. Boop. No, I'll make it look like mobile. Whoops. Because I know a lot of people use the phone, and it's kind of cool how it works like mobile. So like you can press this button here, opens up a menu. Whoops. Oh, that's a bug. I need to fix that. There's some bugs, but basically it's supposed to work like a Substack. Oh, I see the issue. This is working like a back button. So there we go. You can see all the articles here. My sound lags the video. Are you trying to say when I talk, the video slows down? Yeah, I know. I have a giant monitor with a high resolution, so it's hard to. Is that better? It works almost exactly like Substack. And it's all organized. So this is the Ghost of the East India Company. I haven't uploaded the second episode here yet. I should do that now. But it reads just like Substack. And it's all organized. You're right, I should make the text bigger for you guys on the website too. Every article I ever wrote's on here. There's some bugs. Like for instance, I noticed that pressing this doesn't do what it's supposed to. It's acting like a back button. But that aside, that book I was talking about, you can pre-order it here. $7.76 for the PDF and then $45 for the hardcovers. Well, they won't be hardcover. I take that back. The physical. No way I can do hardcover. It'll be the first book I ever write too, so like I'm kind of nervous about it. Like I've written, like I said, I've written like a third of it already, and I like the way it's going, but it's like, I don't know, it's me writing, so I'm like, it's not, I'm not using the AI the same way I do to help me with articles when I write it. Yep. So if I get banned, I still have it all. Yep. It's literally all still here. And I'm trying to make it do more than that. Like, for instance, you use that sidebar over here. You press this. It's about the Ghost Part 1. You get more into Ghost in the Machine Part 1. It's like just more information to get you engaged. Yep, too many bugs. See, that doesn't go to the right. If anybody's good at web design, they can help me out. But yeah, I think I put there's multiple ways to get access to the research papers I use. I'm supposed to have yeah, right here. No, it's not working right. But, it's embarrassing. One of these days I'll do a whole stream on the website when it feels like it's done. One day soon. But yeah, at the end of every article... Whoops, what the fuck I just do? There's Google Drive links to the research papers I use. And these are all the research papers I used for the series so far. Work in progress. There's a small about page. Explains what I do, what I try to talk about, how I do it. And of course it just crashed. Maybe that's a sign. Maybe that's a sign I should log out. But yeah, I got Buy Me a Coffee too. And I try to do this thing where if you become a monthly member on there, I sometimes post early versions of the article, and you can read the early version of part 3 there. If you become a paid subscriber on Substack, you get access to the like what I like to call, I call it Inside the Forge, but it's really, the way I look at it, it's like an investor report where I let you know what I'm doing, where I'm trying to allocate my time and focus. And I also do like a call to action within the community in those posts too, where I'm like, if anybody can help me with this or wants help with this, that's where I ask specifically. It's easier to get involved. So Buy Me a Coffee monthly subscribers get the early rough draft stuff sometimes, but the people who come monthly on Substack get the inside like report. But all the important stuff will always be free when it's all done and ready. All the important breaking, I don't want to put the like information behind the paywall, important information. Hey Farida, you caught me at the end. I finished the presentation. We watched some cool notebook LM with me editing it. Like watching AI make some cool educational content. People liked watching it. You just got notified now? Really? What's up with that? Oh well. I feel like I should log out just so I can upload it faster. The VOD. It was fun. Until I got distracted by my cat. I'm cool. Thank you. You're cool too. I like the topic. Everybody read Farida if you're into well, she likes to talk about AI, but more specifically the way corporate is using it incorrectly, or like the consequences of it. Substack's super weird. Super weird. Yeah, you're welcome. I have trouble articulating because what you talk about, it's complicated stuff. It's important stuff. It's complicated. Same with what I talk about. I have to invent a whole new language. The person typing in chat right above you. Chrysalis. Farida. I think that's how you pronounce it. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Oh, I need outro and routine. I guess you're right. So I can be like, all right, guys, we're done wrapping it up here. Yeah, our publication's called Lights On. So what song should I do? Ooh, I got a good idea. I don't have this song ready now, but oh, I've got a good idea for next time. For now, we got to use a different song. I don't know, that intro song was pretty good though, right? That was fun. Genesis does what Nintendo don't. Do something crazy. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. You just watched me go over the Velocity Hostage in part 3 of The Ghost in the Machine, and you watched me get distracted by my cat. Catch me on the next episode of me doing whatever the heck I do here, and I'm gonna keep doing it. Peace out. Be real.